The UFC is known for its brutal knockouts, fierce rivalries, and crazy finishes, but behind the gloves and punches, there's a side of the UFC that's full of secrets, scandals, and head-scratching moments, from sudden event changes to shady weigh-ins, and even fighters getting away with cheating. This sport has seen it all. Let's dive into the wildest and most controversial moments in UFC history that fans still talk about today. The Jon Jones fight that moved an entire UFC event. In 2018, Jon Jones was set to fight Alexander Gustafsson at UFC 232 in Las Vegas. It was a big deal, a huge rematch everyone wanted to see. But just before fight week, Jones failed a drug test. It showed a tiny bit of a banned steroid still in his system from before. Nevada's athletic commission said they needed more time to figure it out. They didn't want to risk letting him fight. So what did UFC President Dana White do? He moved the whole event from Nevada to California with just a few days' notice. The new state cleared Jones to fight. Fans were angry, people lost money on travel and tickets. Fighters had to change all their plans. But Jones, he just showed up and fought. It looked like favoritism. If it were any other fighter, the match would have been cancelled. Daniel Cormier and the mysterious towel trick. Daniel Cormier is known as a clean, respectful fighter. But at UFC 210, he did something odd. At weigh-ins, he stepped on the scale and was 1 pound over the limit. A minute later, he stepped on again, and now he was exactly on weight. How did that happen? Fans noticed he was pressing down on a towel his team held up, and that could take pressure off the scale and make him seem lighter. The trick worked, and he kept his title shot. Later, Cormier even admitted it by saying, "I may have grabbed the towel in Buffalo." Brock Lesnar skipped drug testing and fought anyway. Before UFC 200, everything was falling apart. Big fights got cancelled, so the UFC called in a superstar icon, Brock Lesnar. But here's the problem, Lesnar skipped the required drug test that fighters returning from retirement must go through. He fought anyway, won, and then failed a drug test after the fight. He tested positive for estrogen blockers, which are used after steroid cycles to hide side effects. This gave him an unfair advantage. He could hit harder, recover faster, and take more damage than clean fighters. His opponent, Mark Hunt, was so mad he sued the UFC and Lesnar, saying they let a dangerous fighter in the cage just to make money. The case got dismissed and Mark had to pay part of the legal fees. Yoel Romero's stoolgate escape. At UFC 178, Yoel Romero was in trouble. His opponent, Tim Kennedy, almost knocked him out at the end of round 2. But Romero didn't stand up for round 3. He sat on his stool even when the referee told him to get up. Why? The UFC's cutman had put too much Vaseline on his face, so they had to wipe it off. That gave Romero an extra 28 seconds to rest. In fighting, that's huge. Romero came back fresh and knocked Kennedy out. Later, Dana White admitted it was the UFC's mistake, not Romero's, but still, many felt that extra rest changed the whole fight. TRT era. Vitor Belfort becomes a superhuman. In the early 2010s, fighters could legally use TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, if they had low testosterone. One of them was Vitor Belfort, but fans said he abused the system. He looked like a video game boss, ripped, fast, and dangerous. He knocked out top fighters and even kicked Michael Bisping so hard that Bisping lost sight in one eye. Eventually, the UFC saw how crazy TRT had become and banned it in 2014. After that, Belfort returned looking like a different man, less muscle, less power. It showed just how much TRT helped him. The Reebok deal hurts fighters' wallets. In 2015, the UFC made a deal with Reebok to be the official sponsor. Fighters could no longer wear gear with personal sponsors. Instead, everyone wore the same Reebok uniforms. Sounds simple, right? But it was bad for the fighters. Before, some made tens of thousands of dollars from sponsors. After the deal, they got just a few thousand or even less. Many fighters spoke out. Fans were upset. The UFC said it made things look more professional, but the truth was clear. Reebok and the UFC made money and fighters lost big. GSP's greasegate scandal. Georges St-Pierre, known as GSP, has always had a clean image, but during his rematch with BJ Penn at UFC 94, things got slippery, literally. BJ's team accused GSP of having Vaseline on his body between rounds. That would make him hard to grab, hurting BJ's jiu-jitsu game. Video showed GSP's cornerman rubbing Vaseline on his shoulders, which is illegal. The fight wasn't cancelled and GSP won. The commission looked into it but let the result stand. GSP said it was just part of his breathing technique, but BJ still believes he was cheated. Ariel Helwani gets banned for doing his job. Ariel Helwani is one of MMA's top reporters. At UFC 199, he broke huge news, Brock Lesnar was returning to fight at UFC 200. The UFC hadn't announced it yet. They wanted it to be a surprise. Dana White was furious. He kicked Ariel out, banned him from events, and took away his credentials, all for being a reporter and doing his job. Fans and fighters stood by Ariel. The UFC later lifted the ban, but Dana White still holds a grudge. It showed how the UFC tries to control the media, even when they're just telling the truth. The James Krauss betting scandal. In 2022, coach and ex-fighter James Krauss got caught in a major scandal. His fighter Derek Minner entered a fight with a hidden injury. Only Krauss and Minner knew. Right before the fight, lots of strange bets came in, all guessing Minner would lose quickly. And that's exactly what happened. Turns out Krauss had a private Discord server where he gave betting tips. He even said he made more from gambling than coaching. That was a big problem. The UFC suspended him. Fighters training with him were banned too, like one of his students, Jeff Molina, also got suspended for knowing about the injury and betting on it. Now Krauss says he's millions in debt and trying to sell real estate. And the investigation still isn't over. UFC 167, did GSP really win? At UFC 167, GSP fought Johnny Hendricks in one of the most debated fights ever. On paper, GSP won by split decision, but if you watch the fight, it looks like Hendricks did more damage. He landed harder shots, cut GSP open, and rocked him. Most fans and experts thought Hendricks won. Even Dana White said, "I'm blown away GSP won that fight." 16 media outlets scored it for Hendricks, yet the judges gave it to GSP. People still argue about it to this day. Nick Diaz's harsh marijuana suspension. Nick Diaz is a fan favorite. He doesn't follow rules, but he always gives his all. After UFC 183, he tested positive for marijuana, something many fighters have used. The Nevada Athletic Commission gave him a 5-year suspension and a $165,000 fine. That was way harsher than what steroid users got. One member even said, you don't respect us, and punished him harder just for attitude. Fans and fighters were shocked. Even Dana White called it insane. The suspension was later reduced, but the damage was done. Nick missed some of his prime fighting years. Charles Oliveira gets stripped over half a pound. Charles Oliveira was the lightweight champion and ready to defend his belt, but at weigh-ins he came in half a pound over the limit. Just 0.5 pounds. He said his scale was correct the night before. Other fighters on the same card had similar issues, so the scale may have been off, but the UFC still stripped him of the title. Even though Charles dominated Justin Gaethje in the fight and submitted him in round 1, it didn't count as a title defense. Fans were mad. It felt like Charles got punished for something that wasn't his fault. The UFC is full of drama, not just in the cage but outside it too. These stories show how rules get bent, mistakes happen, and stars get special treatment. Some moments still cause debates years later. Whether it's drug tests, towel tricks, or shady weigh-ins, one thing is clear. In the UFC, controversy is just part of the fight.